All right, here we are. Welcome everybody to the SnowBirds meeting room. I'm Voidwalker Joe. We got Shadow Spectre 11 with us, King Pain, and Zemami. For
Cheers.
this episode, we don't have a guest. We've had this is actually kind of like a delayed episode because we were supposed to do one. It's like our catch-up episode because we were supposed to do one last week and we never did. Things kind of popped up, and Valentine's Day happened the next day, so we didn't have one that day. And yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, today we have a lot of stuff to go through. So we are going to talk about server meshing, the new Scorpius variants. We have the ship of the week, which is King Pain's area right there. We're going to talk a little bit about interiors and a little bit about kind of like what the lore narrative team talked about. There wasn't really, I kind of gathered a little bit from it. And so we're going to answer a couple questions from that. So to start this off, King Pain, your ship of the week. Go for it.
Oh God. Oh my God. I'm not ready. Yeah, I'm ready. So the ship of the week, everybody can hear me, right?
Yes. Everybody
Alright,
can hear you.
Hi, Bella. The ship of the week is the 100i. This is a entry-level ship from Origin. And I think we're about to round out our entry-level ships, actually. It's... I would say it's a basic fighter. Like a very basic touring ship, maybe. I think would be a better way of describing it. It's not very long. It's not very big. It's very maneuverable for an Origin ship. It's pretty sleek looking. I mean, you'll come to learn that Origin is like the Apple of the Star System universe. They have a very interesting panache on how they do their luxury vehicles. I mean, basically all of Origin is luxury at this point. It's a very small ship. It's only about 20 meters long, just shy of 20 meters. Its beam is about 11 meters, and height's about 4 meters, so it's pretty tiny. It has 2 SCUs of cargo. You can haul a whopping 2 Laranite from Daymar to a TDD. They do have its SCM speed, so I will be talking about those now. SCM. So as a reminder what SCM is, SCM is standard control mode speed, 210 meters per second. Standard control mode will be a master mode when that comes into play. That's how fast the ship will travel at top speed during that mode.
Master modes are in game, by the way. 318. It's just
yeah,
deactivated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I believe what they said in the previous things is once they hammer out all of the ship's flight speeds, basically, and once the new UI comes into play, they're going to turn that on. So I can't think of anything else. There's not really much to the ship other than it's a single seater. I don't think it has a bed or anything. I think it's just pretty much.
It does.
It does?
It does.
So that's okay. I don't fly Origin, so I don't I don't pop into it too often. So actually that's a pretty good thing because it's a $60 ship if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a pretty cool thing to have early on. If you can get a ship with a bed in it, I would. That also means that you can haul boxes. And box missions do pay out eventually, quite a bit. I think, isn't there a box mission that pays like 98k, 95k?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, you've got to progress to it, but yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's a great starter ship. I mean, it's a great starter ship if you like that look. I will say that. If I recall, it's got what, 6 missiles total, 2 bays, 3 missiles apiece.
No,
or is it?
By default, it does not have missiles.
It doesn't.
Really? But you can add missiles.
The 125 variant has missiles.
Gotcha. So
its combat variant has missiles.
So here's the interesting thing. CIG's website actually tells me It's got 2 hard points with 3 missiles apiece.
Interesting.
Yep. And it's got
Maybe I'm wrong.
yeah, 2 hard points
Well,
with size 3 weapons.
I fly the ship every once in a while, so I can check that. But
Oh, hold on. I screwed up. It's size 3 missiles with 2 per mag. And then it should only have 2 missiles at size 3. And then it has size 3 weapons that are 2 per mount.
Yeah.
So it should only have you should have dual lasers coming out of that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not much else to it. It's a sleek looking ship. I mean, it's got.
Well, you're missing one.
You're missing the biggest point. The biggest point.
The main point that I got that ship when I started was it can refuel itself.
Flying.
Yeah, the adaptive intake refinery, I think is what they call it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
As long as you're flying in atmosphere, it can refuel its tank. Now, if you're boosting, it can't refuel faster. Yeah, in atmosphere, not in space, but in atmosphere. If you're flying at regular speed, not with the boost button being held down, you will not run out of fuel.
Wow.
Now, isn't that
That's
the
really
only
cool.
ship
I'd buy
of
it
its
just for
size
that.
that can do that? Yeah, that's the only ship of its size that can do that, right?
That is the only ship that I'm aware of. I think I've heard of other ships doing it, but that's the only ship that I'm aware of.
Okay, are they actually going to implement that though? Like, how old is that? It is now.
It
works. Yes, it works now. It's been in game. Yes, really? It works now. It's been in game for a long time.
Is it like it's just an automatic thing that happens?
Yeah, you don't do anything. If you're flying.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're moving forward, right? If you're moving forward, it collects fuel while you're in atmosphere.
Hydrogen.
You know, I have it right now, simply as like a simple little exploration vehicle, and
what was that?
It's a quick hop ship.
I didn't even notice that. I don't think I ever noticed it.
Yeah.
Didn't even know that part. I'm glad you guys said that, because that just made me like that ship a lot more now.
When I got that ship, when I started, that was the one main thing I looked at, and that it had a bed that I could log out in. Those were the 2 main factors why I bought that ship as a starter.
Cool.
I originally hated that series because I thought it looked snubby and I just didn't like the look to it. But the more I've played it, it handles very, very well. It handles very, very, very well in atmosphere. Then on top of that, when they started entering the atmospheric drag for ships, where, like, for example, the Vanguard got a really bad debuff in atmosphere with speed, I think it got a slight increase to its maximum speed in atmosphere. Just because it's so sleek and smooth. It can go extremely fast, very, very stable, with a decent amount of firepower, very, very cheap. So what I ended up getting it for was literally just a scouting ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would literally take a 100i or a 135 or something like that, and I would literally either use it for scouting out conflict zones. Like, I would fly it. Generally speaking, I'll fly a 135 into jump down, really low altitude, and there's very few things that can keep up with the 100i. Especially if they're coming out small. They can be stealthed out. They have a really small hull rating. So when you stealth them out, they can get out of sensor range very, very quickly. So it's hard to follow. And I also use mine for scouting, for mining ships. Because it can cover so much ground so quickly and do so for a very, very long amount of time. Like, for example, if you're using the Arrow or other fighters that can move fast in atmosphere, they'll eventually have to stop, go somewhere else, and refuel, and then start searching again. The 100i series can just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, I have literally worn my coolers out before I've worn my fuel tank out.
Yeah, the ship. It's very underrated because I mean, not a lot of people fly it, but that ship as a starter, that's the one ship that I will always keep because I can get it quick. It can land. You can spawn it at a mining facility in case you need it. It's a good ship.
It's always been one of those ships that I show some of the new people, even though I don't fly it too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been one I think for some reason I've always, you know, told the new people about it, and they're always blown away by it. They love it, despite its size and everything like that. The just the luxury feel of it and just how nice it flies. They
She's
tend to really
fast.
like it. Yeah.
She is fast.
She is fast.
The
Very.
the acceleration on that ship is more than what I thought when I first got it. And I was like, holy crap, this thing can move.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's one ship that I'll always have that will be in my fleet of ships, and it's a perfect. It goes from one side of the Stanton system to the other on one tank of quantum. So you can't
Drive.
beat it. So
Yeah, highly recommended. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then just the fact that you just blew my mind earlier about the whole in atmosphere refueling.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I love it more already. So yeah.
I still can't believe you didn't know that was in the game because that
No,
there's
I
other
didn't.
ships that do
That's
that too.
There
that's been
is.
in for 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, it's
Dude,
been in there for a
I
long time.
haven't. It just glazed. I glazed right over that somehow. I think it's just because what other ships do that?
I know the character does it.
The character does it.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, exploration vehicles
mhm.
or
I
ships.
want to say the
Carrick
MS
goes-
Star was supposed to.
And
So
this
the
is,
one eye does it whenever it's flying. Does the Carrick have to be flying to do it?
I think so. Yes.
None of,
It has to
so
be like in motion.
do we have any that's in space automatic refueling?
Mm-mm.
Just
Not
in
that I'm aware of.
atmosphere.
There are going to be some ships that can do
I know in the
Well,
automatic
future.
refueling.
the
Yeah, no. In there are some of them. I think the Orion is one of them. Not the Orion.
Yeah, but
The Odyssey might be one of them. But those are really large ships.
doesn't
Yeah.
the Starfare automatically refuel? It has the scoop in the front.
Starfarer. I don't remember.
I think so.
I don't think so, but I'm double checking. It is designed to take in spaceborne gases and refine them for use without landing. So
Okay,
the
just
scoop is
refine them.
for, yeah, it's just refining, not for refueling themselves.
Okay.
You'd have to sell it back to yourself if you wanted to do that.
I don't think the ship could take its fueling rod and reach it around to its own
That's
doohickey.
I got a joke for that, but I'm not gonna.
Might have to remove its ribs, but the variants of the 100i are, as according to CIG, are the 125A and the 135C. The 125A is the starter light fighter, and then the 135C is the starter light freight. According to this, the freighter version, the 135C, is the 6 SCU variant.
I guess an additional 4.
Yeah, it gets an additional 4, so total of 6. Its SCM speed will be 190 meters per second. Not much else different. I don't. And according to this, there's not much else that's really different from that. And then in addition to that, the fighter variant. That's probably why the missile rack showed up, is because it's the variant of the 100 die. I'm guessing that's why it was.
By the way, I was wrong there. All of the variants do have 2 missiles apiece, size 2s.
Okay.
I was wrong.
It happens, man. All good. Oh, and the SCM speed for the 125A is the fastest at 230 meters per second. So
Makes
Yep.
sense for that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, go check it out if you're new to the system, you're new to the game.
I want to mention something.
Yeah, go ahead, bud.
The missiles, especially the one for the 125, they're bespoke. You can change the size 2 missile itself, but you cannot change the rack.
Okay.
Makes sense. And the ship is upgradable. So for a starter ship, if you don't want to go to the cutter, if you don't want to go to the Aurora, or if you don't want to go to the Titan, I do suggest that ship, but not for heavy combat.
Sure, yeah. You know what? I'm also going to add into that. Definitely choose that ship over the Aurora. So, it's a much better ship than the Aurora. It's definitely worth the extra $30.
I would add to that for a second here that the role for this ship, especially if you want to go the route of the 125, because originally I went personally with the 135 whenever I got it, and I would have a note of caution when the cargo bay comes down and you try to load it up with boxes. Those boxes barely fit.
Yeah.
It's really a pain in the rear to load up.
Yeah.
Especially the rear 4 SCU, they are a pain in the rear to load. Yeah. And on top of that, for a ship that is class and what it does in a org, I rarely use them anyways. So I ended up getting rid of my 325 and getting a 125. I had a lot more use for the missiles. And what's really cool is it really excels in a harassment role. When you're not looking to win a fight, but you're looking to be a big enough pain where they can't ignore you, and they have to deal with you. They have to turn away from, say, a mining ship that they're attacking and have to deal with you, or they're attacking your fleet mates, your cargo ship, and they have to turn and deal with you. A 125 works really well in that regard because with 2 size 3 guns, they have to turn and deal with you. If they don't, you're just going to pelt their ship for a long time. It has a lot of rounds that it has a pretty good sized power supply there, and it can just pelt them for a very long time. It charges very, very quickly. And in the moment they turn around to deal with you, you just boost away with your incredibly high boost rate and speed.
Okay.
So,
all right.
With that, I'm good. I'm good.
Cool.
I love that ship, and it will always stay in the fleet.
Right on. I don't have anything else to say about that the 100 I series in general. It's just I think it's the last. Honestly, I think it's the last starter pack we'll go over. I think next week we'll start looking at the next step up from there. So
medium size.
This one's definitely LTI approved. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, hey Joe, I think we're done with this.
Sounds good. So we're gonna go ahead and get into a couple questions that Shadow brought up before the podcast. One of the questions was talking about Jared and how he explained the 317 branch, and kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that during the the ISC or the live? It was the ISC, wasn't it?
No, it was
the
live. Okay. During the live, he had a whole segment dedicated to explaining how the patches are working. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on how he explained it. Are you guys happy with how they're doing the patches? And yeah, go ahead, Shadow.
It enlightened me on what is being done and how it's being done. It gave me more of a perspective of what has to be what it involves. I mean, okay, we got 317.0. Okay. And a lot of people said they had a lot of disconnections and things like that when 317 hit. I didn't have a whole lot of problems with that, but when there was more people involved in the party, that's when I had a lot of the 30K issues. And Zook can verify that with me, because he said he had those problems with 317.0. So we went to 317.1, and that was a train wreck. That was when we were going to go into Invictus, and it was a nightmare. It was a horror. And then we were supposed to go into 318. We were supposed to be testing 318. Then they said no, we're going to 317.2, where we had to wiped all our money and all that, and they gave us the stipend, and that was a train wreck because somebody made a issue with a decimal point, and they took the money away because people went crazy buying 4 or 5 hammerheads and all like that. So we got kind of penalized for that. Then we go to 317.3. We're still having issues with 30Ks. 317.4, that's when we started to see much better stability at that time.
Speak for yourself.
Really, Zook? Seriously?
Everybody has a different experience, it seems like, with each patch.
We did have a much better hold on some things. I'm not going to say everything.
A lot of people did.
And that was when IEE was going to hit and things like that. Okay. Here comes 318 PTU. We're still in 317.4. Then we passed that, and here we are in 317.5, and we're still waiting on 318. He did explain what was going on and why things were happening the way they were. At least he made the attempt to make the community understand why we were going through this. 318 was a monumental thing for them to do because it was a total
Who is that?
Yeah, no worries. 318 was having its issues. It was a total foundational patch to bring everything from 317 or whatever into a new foundation. So I get where they're coming from and I understand why they did what they did. But they needed to explain it as it was happening. If you get what I'm saying. That's my thought.
I don't know. I feel like they operate from a very understandable standpoint of this is just obvious every day for them. They're game developers, so they don't necessarily feel the need to explain away or explain the intricacies of game development. Some people don't want to hear it. Some people do want to hear it. I was one that absolutely loved that entire piece. I was not watching it. I heard they were doing that, and I legitimately logged in and rewatched it several times.
I enjoyed it.
I kind of knew what was happening. I knew the function of what was happening, but the level of detail they went into was very interesting for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it,
Yeah, I
and
thought it was good.
the main focus was just to explain them. When you're doing all these other patches and we're bringing new content, because I think what he was trying to answer was if you're bringing in new content, right? If you're bringing in the Corsair, if you're bringing in all this stuff that came in dot two and dot three, and dot four and dot five, why couldn't you just focus on PES and give us 318? I don't, there's a lot of people were saying, I don't want dot three, dot four, dot five patch. I want a 3.18 patch, right? It's like, well, that's not how game development works. They weren't sacrificing 318 down the road to give you Corsair. They were saying, while we're actively working on this and we're not ready to ship it, the rest of the company who is not actively working on 318, who's making ships, who's making missions, who's making bases and rivers and stuff, they still want to get the stuff out to you. They still want you to be able to play the content that's still being made. So they're essentially backporting it. And they were explaining that to people who can't distinguish between core tech and content. And I loved it. I hope they do it again if necessary. I think it's awesome. I loved how Jared was honest with it. Basically, he went into the dive about how 319 is basically still going to be on the 318 branch. Issues with them naming it 319 and not 318.1 or whatever. But again, that's just a naming schema that I'm not overly concerned about. At least they're being honest about it. And I love the fact that the community developed a concern that had been building up for almost a year, and he answered it. That was the bottom takeaway for me.
Yeah, but I thought it was good when he broke it down. I enjoyed that. It made me feel more confident in what was happening.
Yeah,
I know. Right before he explained it, I understand why he did that, because there was a lot of Spectrum and Reddit stuff that I was seeing popping up about the patches, and there was just nobody was understanding. Nobody, like, I was reading some of them and I was like, oh my god, guys, come on. Come on. So I can understand, like, it's crazy because Jared, he has, like, he takes it upon himself sometimes to try to alleviate some of the stuff that's going on Spectrum and Reddit. So he's a saint for trying.
Yeah, I think he did a decent job explaining that. To expand a little bit, though, I'm going to expand. I'm just going to follow up with what Zook was saying. Just effectively, what people are doing is they're seeing CIGs in entirety. They see the whole pie. They see
a monolith.
Yeah. They see a monolith of a thing producing a game. And then when they hear those scenarios where, like, well, this, and this, we're like, why can't you do this better? This one thing's awful. Or whatever. I think what it is, people are incapable of delineating that there's different teams here. There are different teams that work at different speeds, which produce things at different times, which then you can add those different things in on something that wasn't planned. Case in point.
Teams are divided up by expertise.
Exactly. And that's the big thing. I don't think people recognize that. They just see the whole pie. They don't see the ingredients that go into the pie. And I think that's the biggest thing that aggravated me about a lot of those Spectrum posts that, even Joe pointed out. It's like, you just don't understand it. They just want to slam their fist and be heard. And again, if you paid money for something, you want to see progress, I get it. You should be. You have every right to be upset about it. But understand the entire situation. Even in my team, we have 3 different teams, and we're all producing things at 3 different speeds. For example, our art team is producing a boatload of conceptual art, and then my development team is producing you know, at a different rate, um, different versions of the game, different iterations of the game. The same thing happens with CIG. In this case, you know, maybe for example, the Antares was produced because somebody new came along and they wanted to get a ship through, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
They wanted to say, okay, can you do
And
this?
that's most likely. I agree with
Yep.
you, Mike. That was their stepping stone into ship creation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that's probably likely what it is. I'm also saying it's the thing that I think people don't pay attention to. Jared's explanation of how those things work, I think, was awesome. It was high level enough. I think anybody could see it and understand it. And I think if he does more stuff like that and explaining different aspects, I think that he will inevitably help more people understand how each team functions. I mean, that's basically the effective point of ISC and SCL anyway, is showing people how teams function. So, yeah, I mean, that's my take on it. I give thumbs up to Jared for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I want to jump on to clarify, because you are a game developer, and I think you're making the same mistake a lot of game developers make, and when discussing this, is the expertise that these teams are divided up by are not shareable. They are almost exclusive. The person making and designing and 3D modeling these ships is not the same person with a completely different skill set from the people who are developing the technology and the networking behind PES. Right? There was nobody, or there was probably almost nobody that was background engineering that was working on any of the ships, because it's a completely different skill set, completely different tool set. That would be very akin to saying, "Hey, that chemical engineer, I need him to go make a painting." Right?
Right.
Why can't you all just make paintings? Like, no, that's not how it works. That artist is not an engineer, and that engineer is not an artist. And they're separated up in those teams because they needed somebody who's really good at this one area to do this task very effectively, and that they can't cross work. And while PES is being built by the engineers, you have people that are waiting to make ships and saying, "We're making ships, we have ships ready." And CIG says, "Well, we still want to get these ships to the backers. We still want to get ships out." And that's what was happening. Jared was explaining to us the process in which the content that was being created was getting delivered to us, even though engineers wasn't ready for 318 to be released. And I think a lot of people picked up on that. I think they realized what it was. I think it was good.
We've got a question from Ken Claudio. In spite of how 318 has dragged on with continuing issues, when does each person on the panel believe our possible going to live for 318 will be?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of impossible to predict. You know, you can try, but it's most likely most of the time going to be wrong.
It'll be greater than or equal to now.
Yeah, I really don't want to. I can speculate, and we all can speculate all we want. But at this point,
March,
with everything that's happening, I'm not gonna put a date.
You know, it's possible that we get it before next month. We still got time. You know,
we could get it next week.
They've been doing really good with fixing bugs as far as the last couple patches is concerned, from what I saw. But
I think I read earlier from one of the CIG staff that basically it's trams. They're just trying to fix the trams right now.
I know that's what the last patch that was really focusing on that current that really trying to dial that in. Yeah. I think maybe March, but we'll see.
at this point in time, I think I was saying this before the show started, but for me, Ken, the bottom line for me is most of the in-game bugs we can work around when they occur. They're not game breaking. They're not gameplay breaking. They're not going to stop me from being able to play and enjoy the game, right? The server crashes, the trams, and the 30 case from the server side, whether it's client or whatever, or client or server side, those need to be tapped down a bit more. And I think a lot of that's coming from the trams, and that's why they were working on the trams. But aside from that, a lot of the actual in-game bugs are pretty decent at this point in time. I don't think we're far. But
I don't think
quote
so
unquote, what is far? What is far? That could be tomorrow, or that could be 6 weeks from now, depending upon how hard those bugs are to fix.
Yeah.
And personally, I think it's amazing that they're taking this long, that they're being this careful with this patch, because at this point in time, I think we all can recognize that we're going to be living with the 318 branch for a while. Very similar to how we're living with the 317 branch now. And what they don't want to do, because at the bottom line is the last year living with the 317 branch has been hard for every Star Citizen community. It has been hard for the company. It's gotten a lot of flack, not because the patches wasn't there or the content wasn't there. It was because it was just straight up broken. And they're taking time. They're making sure the particular, .0 patch is super stable, so that when they go to add content later, before, getting ready for 4.0, back, so that when we get 4.0 in, mid 2024, we'll have a good experience, we'll have good gameplay, and we'll have a good base to build our communities and to build new people coming to the game on and give them a good experience. And I love that focus. I love that dedication. It's good to see them learning from their mistakes.
Yeah. And I will give them credit. At least they're sticking to it and trying to get things fleshed out as much as possible. Because, I just got to give them that credit. Because at least, I have witnessed game companies drop a, for lack of a better term, half-baked patch that just was awful. This never happened here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we get our patch notes, we see things that are still giving them problems. But at least they're pushing and trying to get it out the door, but they're not throwing out junk. At least they're not trying to. They're at least putting a lot of effort into bringing us this patch live. And I'd rather them take their time and get it than throw out a hunk of junk.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's frustrating, but I agree with you. They got it. They this is laying the foundation for PES, and it's important that the first patch that includes PES is kind of nailed down as much as possible before they move on, because it just gets harder. I mean, it gets harder to backtrack and fix things as you keep moving forward.
Yeah. Also, one thing I want to add on to that, this first patch, 318, is the first patch where there's an actual benefit for them to taking extra time and troubleshooting and bugging the bug fixing code before it gets released, because this is final code, production
no longer
game
legacy code.
Yeah, no longer legacy, no
gone.
longer patchwork, no longer temporary code to make something X work. This is supposed to be the final version of PES that will be in the final game. So now is the first time where troubleshooting it and going, taking the time to actually fixing it
actually
and
means
it
something.
will something exactly and pay dividends going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because after all of this time, we're finally at a point where it seems like we're actually getting real, legit progress. And
Yeah.
it's very sad to feel that way, but it's also exciting because it's like, thank God, because whatever we see from here, it's always going to be exciting stuff, no matter how small, because it's whatever's iterating on what we have with 318 it's just that's it. That's what we have. That's the game, you know? So it's, you know, there's no more guessing on the core tech behind everything. There's no more like, well, how, yeah, it's just, we already know after this is server meshing. That's the final piece to the puzzle. That, you know, after that, that's when shit gets into real high gear and we start getting purpose to our gameplay and start getting all the extra stuff kind of layered on to the game that we really have been waiting on seeing. It's really going to make the game.
Ken's got a comment. Absolutely. I think the community has been more patient because we understand this is a foundation for PES. Yeah.
I think people are kind of understanding a little bit more this time around because the patch has been around longer, or it's been in development longer, so we've had more time to talk about it, and kind of, you know, it gave a lot of the newer players too more time to really kind of figure out what's going on.
Well, when everybody was waiting for it to drop so we could get to wave 1. And when wave 1 hit and we were able to get our hands on it, you know? And then when they finally opened it to open PTU, that gave everybody the opportunity to get in there and see what's going on. So they know what's happening and they're seeing it. And that makes a big difference than not knowing anything at all.
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm just going to say it.
There you go. There you go.
You're waiting for it.
Chad, if you haven't noticed, Shadow has his own catchphrase. It's up on the screen, so he likes to say that every once in a while.
We'll eventually all get our own. We just don't know when.
Yeah. We kind of thought about that a little bit, and we still aren't. I know we got everybody's for the most part, right? I don't remember what they were though. I'll have to write that down.
Zook is. I love the Aurora.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just joking. Payne, I hate the Aurora. All right. What's next on the question list here?
The question list.
We can go ahead and go into our first major topic.
I gotta say, okay, there's one person that is always gonna say this one word, these words. I'm on fire, and you know who that is.
I saw that.
That's fire.
I'm on fire.
Yep.
Oh God.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get into the topic of server meshing that was talked about last week. So, it was an episode that was dedicated to the summit that they've had recently with the 3 core teams that kind of came together and really kind of laid down, I guess, their ideas of how it's going to go moving forward within the next year, or maybe a little bit past that. Let's see, kind of going through some of the notes here that I've written down about it before we get into the question is that they were talking about PES and COVID really kind of stalling development on server meshing because I know they wanted to do it earlier, but realized that PES needed to be in first. So the mix between those two things really kind of made it so we didn't really see any updates on server meshing or any work done on it. It doesn't mean they haven't had any work done on it. There is a lot of work that went into it, but it was stalled until now. So going into the first question, do you guys think they will make good progress now that PES and COVID is over with? That PES they're still going to be iterating on, but do you guys think that we're going to actually make some real progress on server meshing? And how far into server meshing do you think we will be by the end of the year? Go ahead,
I
Shadow.
think they are. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Damn, Zook.
You can
He's on
continue.
that.
You can continue.
Juke, jump on it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I think they are. I mean, like, we're seeing progress on PES. We're seeing the iCache being left behind in the dirt. We're seeing a whole new technology being implemented. At the same time, we're seeing content. We're seeing teams being put together in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Whole new ship teams being put together.
Yeah.
Like, we're seeing content coming out now. I think at first COVID was. They thought they weren't as affected, and then they realized they were, and now they're just being honest with us. I don't know if they were lying to themselves as well, but who knows? And I know a lot of the server meshing technology has been worked on in the past. They were originally planning to have PES and server meshing in essentially the same patch in a singular package. They split them up, and it became a lot easier to deliver. And I think when they split up Pyro from server meshing, that it'll make it easier for both of them to be delivered again. Again, the people making Pyro is not the same people making engineering. And if one doesn't have to wait on the other, we can get content better, quicker, and with higher quality. I think with that statement, I felt confident saying that I feel like we're going to see Pyro before the end of the year, which makes me a lot more comfortable with their statements about seeing the whole sea before the end of the year. Will we see server meshing before the end of the year? Maybe.
I think
Still
I
haven't
think
made up my
pieces
mind
of
about
it.
that one.
I think pieces of it.
We may see pictures of it.
So,
Though my only concern, and this is a question that I really have for, say, Payne on this topic, is so based on what they said and your expertise, how can they have the two systems that were supposed to be by definition on two separate servers? How can they have another system and there not be server meshing?
So they would have to be completely independent instances. So in games like MMOs and stuff like that, you have instances that are not meshed. They are sent to a system memory that are replicated to every other system memory as a reference. If you move from server to server, what happens is you unload from server A entirely. Everything is unloaded. You are logged off from that server forever until you log back in. During the transition, you are on another server. And then when you exit that transition, you are on another server. So you completely log off. Server meshing is different from that because, just to reiterate to the audience, server meshing means that you never log off in between these instances. You were just transported from server A to server B to server C. So, how do I else describe this elsewise? Let me put it down in a basic Unreal format here. When you're talking about, let's say, a single player game. When I load up a game, the instance is there. My character isn't loaded and all that stuff. But if I click on start game and enter the game, a game mode is loaded and a level is loaded. When I travel from map A to map B, what happens is my character and everything is pulled out into the game mode and put into the next game mode or level. So how it differs, how they could accomplish that is two different ways. And the most likely way they're going to accomplish, and thanks for going with this train. No, you're good, bro. How they're most likely going to accomplish this is it's going to be two independent systems that you log in. at first. It makes sense to me that you would log into Pyro or Stanton. And transferring between the two will be, for a lack of a better term, if they have a gateway between the two, it'll most likely be a loading screen of some type, which won't be a loading screen. It'll be another game level that you enter. So, again, how that differs, again to the audience, how that differs from what server meshing is going to be. Server meshing is you are on this DGM, which is a game universe. You move from server A to server B to server C without logging out of the system. And what they're probably going to do is you log into server A. When you migrate, you log out, log in, log out, log in. And these are independent physical servers or virtual servers. And each one of them will have to transfer your data from A to B to C. Persistence will allow you to do that, and SOCs too. That's the important thing. That's why it'll work, is because PES will allow that to happen. Because it'll persist your character from A to B to C.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
We got please. Questions from the audience as well.
Let's go with the audience first. Go ahead.
Ken Claudio, question. Does ongoing development of unknown, undisclosed ships fuel sales, which provide revenue, but also take resources away from working on the game? Should this be a concern?
I'll answer that. No, it does not, because this is actually something we touched on a bit earlier. There are independent teams working on independent things. A ship development team or a ship design team will do that. We'll focus on those things. And no, it shouldn't be a concern. If you love the project, let them produce all the ships they want. Other things like server meshing won't be a problem if new ships come out, because there's a whole other team working on server meshing. So.
Okay.
See,
and go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say CIG needs the money. I mean, it's really getting spent on the people that they hire and keeping the buildings, the lights on and all that kind of stuff. So, you don't hinder it. Just let them do it. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to buy ships. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not like they're lining their coffers with gold.
Okay. And
exactly.
I think the only issue is that maybe some of these ships, they don't really have too much of a purpose right now, because
that's the big
they're out there, and sometimes you look at a ship that they put out and you're like, why? Like, we don't really need that right now. It's not going to do anything. And
exactly,
I know they would rather have something to go along with it, like the Vulture and salvage. So they try to do that as much as they can, but they're still going to be putting out ships that just right now you're going to be like, what? Why? But
why? What do?
That you're probably automatically going to think like, yeah, it's just strictly to have another ship for revenue purposes. And you know what? Like, at some point these ships are going to have a reason. It's just not right now. It might take a while, but me personally, I don't really have an issue with that. I guess just don't buy the ship. You don't have to buy the ship.
Yeah. Nobody's forcing you to purchase a ship.
You can wait for a ship with purpose,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people wait for the ships to be released live before they even consider buying it, which is fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you don't like the business model, then don't give money to them. No one here is asking you to do that. Mm-hmm. We want you to have fun and be comfortable with the money you're spending. And if that's your starter pack, leave there. There's plenty of us that do and have spent money on ships. We'll be happy to let you both use our ships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would like to circle back around to ask that other question, Payne, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead and clarify, and then we'll hit the audience's last stuff.
So the clarification piece is, to me, like what you're saying is, because there's going to be a whole gameplay section that might take a while, that they're going to be using that time that will take for that gate to exist and you to go through it to essentially log you off of one server, log you on to another server, and because the handoff will be very, very long, this becomes a lot more capable, sort of like creating a temporary or fudging the meshing code. to at least be able to deliver another star system.
I don't know if they'll fudge the messing. I don't know if
Server
they'll.
meshing.
I think it'll function more like zones with like a lot of your popular MMOs. I think Nightwolf in the chat said it well. Is zoning it like an EQ, if you remember that. So I don't think they'll necessarily.
That was EverQuest, right?
Yeah, EQ is EverQuest. So when you enter a new spot, it'll be quick because it's effectively just copy paste. For lack of a better term, it's actually copy move or move, and then unlock. You know what I'm saying? I can't word today, man. I quit. So yeah, I don't think they'll fudge the server meshing about it. I don't think that that's going to be a problem because it's just in functions and code. It's literally travel to, and then the function in the back end will take care of everything else. So to put it in an imaginatory state, it's like I'm trying to think, what MMOs have you played? I might be able to point at one and tell you that one.
Not really, to be honest with you. I know this is Elite Dangerous. I play Elite Dangerous.
Okay. How Elite Dangerous deals with going system to system is very much like what I'm saying. You just move from system A to system B. You're logged off of the previous map and logged into the new map.
Gotcha. What's up, Trip?
And that.
Hey,
oh, hey, Trips. Yeah, but yeah, Trips actually is the one who says like EQ, like EverQuest. Like he's got it pretty much down pat. Like basically, it's zoning. It's basically when you exit a zone and enter a new zone. The idea of the technology is all like on a high level is the same idea, but the underlying technology is what's different. Juniper switches. Are you familiar with those?
I am.
Okay. You know how they're virtualized racks, right? You can just slide them in and it pretty much grabs it and goes. That's how server meshing is going to work. As opposed to what I'm talking about is more like adding Cisco switches to a stack where you actually have to, tell the interfaces which is the proper interface to reach the next switch. And you have to exit through that. Now you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so essentially they're using like a more well-worn, known good solution that has it's a little bit clunkier, but more stable to temporarily work another system into the game while they get server meshing going.
Yeah, effectively. And I don't know anything else beyond the hypothesis of it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is pure speculation.
Pure speculation. I want to be clear.
Gotcha.
I don't know how they're actually going to do it. This is just how I would do it, my hypothesis of how it should be done. But again,
because that video was really cool, but it did lose me a good chunk because it did speak above my head a good little bit there.
Yeah. And currently, the way I understand how they're doing server meshing is a step-by-step basis where they're doing a static server mesh where it's statically assigned to a cluster of servers. Like only these clusters, nodes, will work together until dynamic comes into play, and dynamic will open up everywhere. So,
yeah, the major part of that video, I think the major takeaway I saw was that they are trying to really focus on how to separate the jump gates to Pyro from server meshing, so that way they can get us Pyro. So I really think we're going to end up getting Pyro by the end of the year.
And I'm okay with that.
Feeling good.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see. I know Zook, you probably don't care about it, but we're going to see it at CitizenCon probably. It's probably going to be a major focus, man. It's if we don't already have it before then, which I feel like they would plan for it to be, right after. Like, by the way, at the end of this CitizenCon, there's gonna be like a new patch, something like you're gonna be able to go into and jump into Pyro right now, or something like that.
By the way, here's the
computers at home.
Yeah.
Here's the RSI, Milky Way galaxy. Skin.
Hey,
that'd
next
be cool.
question. Next
Oh, yeah.
one. I'm just saying. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hit the next one. I hope I've clarified things for people. I'm sorry if I'm.
No, you did a good job, man.
All right, so I have kind of a fun question that I wanted to bring up with you guys. Where do you think we
No, I
would
won't
be?
live in New Orleans.
Where do you think we'd be with server meshing right now if COVID and kind of like what they're kind of putting all of the delays on is COVID and PES? Let's say we already had PES and COVID wasn't really like a thing. Where do you think we would be at server meshing right now? Do you think we would have it in our hands and we'd have Pyro by now and all that kind of thing, and 4.0 would be closer? Because it was a good 3-year span
Mm-hmm.
for that delay.
No,
So where do you guys think we would be at right now?
I'm gonna say no.
No server meshing?
No server meshing, and maybe Pyro.
I think PES would have been flushed out.
Yeah, I could say that one too. But I don't know how much I agree with the idea that COVID blasted them like basically they're letting on. I mean, it's still possible. I'm not denying that. I don't know their work environment.
I think it was mostly
But
PES.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think if anything, it was more PES than it was a pandemic that slowed them down, which is fine.
They just had to shift their focus to getting PES done before that. That was it.
Mhm.
They didn't have anybody else to really. And the fact that there were so many unknowns with PES when they actually get it out, it was kind of like one of those things where I feel like it was harder for them to work on server meshing at the same time. Would have been, I think, a nightmare.
Yeah.
It sounds
and-
at least
and
it
on the-
sounds like it would be a nightmare.
On the flip side, you could also say that, depending on their work environment and how they operate and stuff like that, yeah, it is very possible working from home was detrimental to their work environment. And that's okay. Like, I'm a guy who likes to work from home. I personally, that's just me though. I focus better in my house and away from other people. Some people can't do that. Some people need other people around them to focus and get better. And that's okay.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, no, I think if anything, it was PES that slowed everything down. I think we wouldn't have server meshing, but I think we'd probably be right on the cusp of Pyro. That's how I feel.
Okay. After 3 years of them being able to work on server meshing, do you think? Because we're at that point right now. I'm saying if we were at the point that we are right now, 3 years ago, you still don't think we'd have server meshing? Because I feel like it would have to kind of have it, so at least some form of server meshing.
I think that's unknowable, honestly, Joe. Like it's
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, we know it affected them. Even when they were saying it wasn't, we knew it was. For example, just the fact that there was COVID meant construction zones were going to be slowed down. Their ability to build facilities slowed down.
Yeah.
Their ability to build teams and add interviews
Mm-hmm.
slowed down. Everything that they did in fashion our level is going to be affected and slowed down. To what extent? We don't know. To what extent and how fast could they? How fast could they get back up to speed? What could they have been? What happened to Montreal being built 6 months ago? Right. I don't know. There's a lot of things about how because you guys like being good out. How reasonable but like it's we really don't know. We know we further than we are today. For sure. But how far?
Yeah. Well, it's
So hard to say.
It's the same question I was thinking on, like, would we have, where would we be at by the end of the year or beginning of next year?
No, we're not here
We still
yet.
don't know.
Hearing what?
What's up?
Did you guys get audio issues from me?
You cut out every once in a while, but it's kind of like the usual thing that's been happening with your mic.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if it's like whenever you peak when you talk, maybe it cuts out.
Oh yeah, your gate. your gate could be grabbing you and going, "No, you're too loud." So
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
it could be like the
I'll be
the
more-
Discord
I'll be more
stuff, too.
chill.
I don't know.
it's
I'll be
just
more
it's just
chill.
because you're excited, bro. It's all.
It's a
I know,
feature.
I am.
It's a feature.
It's designed into my DNA.
You're not truly excited until you're just completely mute. Until you're just
All we see is
you have
all
to
we
be
see is Zoop's
constantly
mouth.
thinking.
Okay. Now scratch static on all people speaking.
That's probably you.
No, that's not happening.
That Ken, that's probably on your end. That might be your speakers. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's possible.
I can hear you guys very clearly, but
Because I got the audio playing over here on my other monitor. I hear us just clear.
Yeah, I'm also playing it on my phone next to me here. I could hear the audio. Sounds
Okay.
fine.
Trip, I know you're not an audio pro. Trust me.
I play on TV.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead. Shadow, did you have anything to add to that at all or anything?
I think that if we didn't have the pandemic, PES would have been more stable, and we probably would be on the cusp of pyro and server meshing. I don't know all the particulars because I'm not an engineer. I don't know all the stuff about it, but I do think that we would be a little bit farther along than we are now. So
Yeah, I think it's clear. We definitely would be further along in some capacity, but okay.
And Night Wolf has a good point because of the Squadron 42 focus.
Well, that's been a thing since before.
That's been a thing. Yeah.
Before COVID and all that.
Yeah, but I still say that PES would have been a hell of a lot more stable now, and we'd be closer to getting server meshing. So that's my thought.
All right. The next question. Do you guys think that Pyro is ready for because they emphasized a lot during the video that they're gonna work on separating Pyro from and the jump gate from server meshing so that way we can actually get Pyro. Do you guys think that we're ready for that, like the game as it is right now? Do you as far as like the player counts, the gameplay we have at the moment, do you think Pyro would be fun? Do you think there'd be things to do? Do you think it's just going to be another thing that we end up getting that really doesn't have much to it? What do you guys think?
I'll let someone else go first this time.
Shadow, you want to go?
Chad?
Okay. My thoughts, I think the system is ready. They may need to polish some things on it. But as far as content goes, I think it needs to be worked on more because just like Mike said in an earlier podcast that we did, I don't want to go there and find nothing. I want to be able to do things. And for me, my organization, okay, we're going to go there and supply people, okay, that want to be there and are going to be there. And I know for a fact that there's so many people that want to go to Pyro, they want to go there and do something. So I hope that there's something there for them. Just to be totally fair.
That's what everybody wants. They want to go to Pyro and have fun. It would be a big letdown to just go there. That big showcase of, oh man, the excitement of going through the jump gate.
Yeah.
And then you get on the other side and there's like not much to do. It's all the same stuff as Stanton, that we've done a million times.
Yeah, but Stanton has quite a bit to do. It's just that everybody's done it. So that's why they're saying there's
It
nothing.
hasn't changed much throughout the years since
You know,
3.0 and stuff. I mean, there's been
but
stuff added, but
yeah,
yeah,
but this you got to look at it from the new player aspect as well. There's plenty to do in Stanton
they need to
when you're a
add
new player.
purpose because
But-
right now you don't have purpose to do anything. You can make it up, with you and your
Yeah,
org. You can
but
make it have purpose, but I mean, as far
right,
as like
What
from
would
the game
be what
itself,
would be that purpose for you, Joe?
I want us to get past all the wipes. I want money to mean. I want there to be a reason to make money. I want to be able to do something with that money other than buy ships. Like there needs to be more to it. I want
like I
I
want a
want
casino.
reputation to work. I want the reputation to matter more. I want there to be more into that. Like if they sat down and focused on what they have right now in game and kind of fleshed them out more, the purpose would start to come. But because we're at tier 0 with most things, it's we don't really have the purpose yet.
yeah. And Fire just made a good statement. Okay,
Yeah, player hangars and houses and
it's
stuff. Yeah,
houses. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
base
'Cause-
building. Like if we ever get base building in there, that's all I'm ever gonna do probably for a really long time. The whole crafting thing and
That's how I
And-
feel about scraping right now.
Well, I feel like there's two things that I think we're missing right now. And that's one, because it's going to be a largely lawless system, the same activities we have now will have a different feel for them when the default setting is no comm satellite. Right? Doing a bunker is a little bit different when the comm satellite is down. Right? When you're approaching a station, a bunker, let's say they're copy and paste, right? Worst case scenario, they're copy and paste from Stanton.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing in Stanton and you're approaching a bunker and you see a marker, a signal at that bunker or near the bunker, and you look up in that corner and that comm satellite is gone, that's instantly a different experience. Your nerves stand on end.
But is it
You're
enough?
like, oh
though?
no,
Is
what's
it
going to
gonna be enough?
happen?
We
Is it
don't
going
know
to be
if it's
enough?
gonna be enough
It's-
though.
Oh.
Yeah, is what I am bringing to this situation enough? Do I want to continue to this situation? And if you do that on a permanent scale where that is the default, right, it'll be very interesting. And I think they'll have enough. I think they'll have content. I feel very confident. I feel very confident in Pyro, not just for that, but you look at how fast they're building outposts in Stanton for broken apart, abandoned outposts. It's going to be very, very similar in Pyro to a much larger scale. We've already seen how they built, where they would go through and build ruined stations of the stations that we already have, just like they're building ruined versions of ships, right? And they've already said that they've worked on, instead of there being a governmental body and a crime stat rating, you're going to have that reputation matter. That reputation with local criminal gangs or criminal cartels or whatever you want to call them, that's going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you're even allowed to approach a facility. So it's going to be probably, and my guess is probably very similar missions to what we have in Stanton, but with a big enough twist on them to be and act and feel differently. You won't care that these missions will earn you AUEC because AUEC won't mean much in this system. What you'll care about is, will this mission give you enough reputation with this faction so that you can land at a station that's really far out there, because you'll have to feel to go to another destination further out.
That's my hope. That's what I hope. But yeah, I'll have to wait and see, because I do worry about that. I don't want it to just be something that you fly into and you go explore a little bit. It might be a little bit more dangerous, and then you kind of just like, oh, well, I mean, it's okay, I did it now. That's it. There's no reason to do it anymore. I kind of just did it. I'm used to it now. there's that's it. I don't want that to happen. That's all.
I think for me, purpose in Pyro, I feel like Pyro is like the damn near perfect opportunity to introduce proper exploration and scanning and stuff like that. I think that's the perfect opportunity.
And like data smuggling and stuff.
Exactly, things like that. I think those game modes are the perfect thing to use Pyro for, because then that's like, what, 3 other game loops that we don't currently really have? I mean, exploring currently is just let me fly somewhere. But why would I want to explore? Like, I gotta discover things.
Yeah.
And then
crafting would do that. If you have certain things on different planets that only are there, that would be a reason to go there and go look around.
Yeah. Well, that's me, though. Like, I mean, that's just pretty much what I have. I mean, like, Stanton's your base level everyman system, if you will, every person's system, if you will, when they have like a little bit of everything involved there. But I think Pyro really needs to focus on the smuggling aspect, really needs to focus on a bit of exploring, and really needs to focus on that outlawness that we are so excited to have. There has to be something there.
The danger, there has to be I want the survival mechanics to be also like a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah.
And along with the danger and everything, I feel like I really want you to be able to, think about what's going to happen to you when you land on that certain planet. You need to, where I want you to have to do a little bit of research on the planet, like scan the planet, figure out what that planet is, the atmosphere, can you breathe on it? What kind of storms do they have? Are you even going to be able to fly down, or what ships can you bring down, and that kind of thing.
Like gravity effects, like if your ship can land there or not. Like
what resources it has on it.
Are you going to need water going down there? Like how long are you going to go down there for? How
not
much
every
stuff
planet
do you
has
have?
water.
Yeah, so that kind of thing. That's what I want out of exploration, personally.
Yeah, that's even if it's a tier 0 exploration, we need exploration and outlawness, if you will, piracy and some of that really needs to be the focus of Pyro. But yeah, that's mine. That's my answer to that question.
Okay.
We're going to see data. I mean, to jump off that, I think we're going to see data running come to the game pretty quickly.
I think so too.
Just because of the fact that it plugs so well in with salvaging missions, mining missions. It plugs so well in with that that it would not surprise me if we don't see a tier 0 version of that at the very minimum. And that would plug in extra well when you consider, let's say you have a bounty. Like let's say you're in Stanton and you have a bounty for whatever his name is, bad guy number 5, because he's super bad and has a 5-star criminal rating in Stanton. Well, they've already talked about in lore about going into the Banu space or another space to go hunt them down, and bounty hunters going into Pyro to hunt people down. Well,
lore does not mean it's going to be in-game, though. Right now, it's separate.
Well, but now it's separate. But wouldn't it be pretty tricky to say, I want to have an org that's sort of a bounty hunting org, and you have somebody that is pulling data? That's because, again, remember, there's no comm satellites, so you don't have a real-time marker over a player's head. So how do you find them? Yeah, if you get a player who's looking for it and is streaming that data for that player, boom, there's your data. Now the question is, how do you deliver that data to a bounty hunter for profit, real time, in game? That game mechanic has to be decided on, has to be designed, but there's an actual need for data running for mining, salvaging, and bounty hunting now going into Pyro for the first time. So there's a lot of how we do everyday things in Stanton will be fundamentally different because there's no singular unifying authority in it, and there's no comm satellite. Just those two things, if they really do a poor job, it's going to be Stanton, but criminalized.
Yeah.
But if they do a few minor tweaks, which it seems like they're doing, right? They've talked about it. They've said they're doing it. They've given examples, and we're seeing them implementing missions now. That's going to be doing that in 319. It feels like I have confidence to believe that they are. So I'm excited.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Maybe I'm going crazy.
No,
I'm sorry. I just noticed the Jay's 2 cents hoodie there, King.
but
I like it.
they're talking about a faction that is trying to bring law into Pyro, and lawful players have the option to hook up with this faction. So that's going to be interesting too, to see how that works out.
Like a Xenothreat event, but in Pyro in reverse.
Oh yeah, you'll have like the UEE attacking pyro stations. That'd be cool. Oh, and you could be part of the assaulting team.
That
Wow.
would be interesting.
Yeah,
It would.
So
That'd be really
you
cool.
made my
I
brain
mean,
noodle think.
it's a faction, from what I gather from what some people were saying, it's a faction that they're called the survivors or something like that, and they're supposed to be trying to bring some type of law to the pyro system, and you can go in there and help them. Now that's an interesting aspect.
It is, yeah.
Very interesting.
I'd totally be down for that. That'd be really cool. On to the
I'm
next.
all good. Sorry, I'm all good.
You're good. On to the next one. Let's see. I want to know now. I kind of already know what you guys might say to this because we've talked about this plenty of times. But are there any do you guys have any worries at all about server meshing ending up being kind of like iCache? Do you where's your confidence level with them being able to deliver server meshing in its entirety?
Very much so. The question that my concern is for server meshing is really boils down to two questions. How small can a server meshing effectively go where communication between the servers becomes so laggy that it starts interfering with gameplay? Like for example, in theory, you can have an entire you could have the med bay or the hangar bay of a javelin ship or an Idris be its own server if there's enough people in there, right?
Mm.
In theory, that's functional. But if you have the bridge, the med bay, and the hangar bay be their own, servers with server meshing, right? Will that cause issues with, when the bridge says we're going to go full steam ahead, right? Does it communicate to the fighters it's about to take off properly?
Mm-hmm.
Will there be issues? Will there be massive desync issues that can't be worked around or not? Like what will the limitations be before it starts affecting gameplay? And there is still a hard limit on the speed of light that you can communicate with servers on. Like there is a physical difference between being there in a ship and having multiple servers talking to each other real time.
Yeah.
It will be very interesting how fast they can push it. Now, they're going to be connected into a data center, so they can make that difference very, 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 very small. I think it's doable. Like, to be clear, I wouldn't be supporting this project if I didn't think it's doable. But it will be interesting to see how it goes. And then, two, if this fails, right, then the shards cannot. If they can't get some version of server meshing working, the idea of a shard where you could have tens of thousands of players on a single shard to really take advantage of persistence is a pipe dream. And again, I think it's doable, but server meshing is one of those core technologies that is required to exist for the idea of what Star Citizen wants to be.
I don't think they're going to give up on it. Whatever issues that they have going forward, I think they're going to they have the mindset of like, well, this is it. Like, we can't scrap this too. Like, we got to make it work somehow. So, yeah.
It is a core tech. They will sell ships until they figure it out.
Something I want to know that maybe King can kind of go along with this question, can kind of clarify a little bit, like server meshing in other games. What's the difference between other games and Star Citizen? Like, I know the question, just like I know the answer a little bit, but not enough.
So it kind of gonna kind of echo what I said earlier. It's effectively the underlying technology is what's different. It's how the job is performed is what's different versus how the concept's laid out. So I'm gonna try to say this a different way, and maybe it's more clear. So I'm going to answer the other question first, which was, do I think they'll be able to deliver it? Yes, I do, because they're brilliant people. They have brilliant engineers. And like Zook, I believe they can do it. That's why I give them money.
I think they can too.
That's why I was able to buy a stupid ass concierge hat. Okay. So to understand the difference. Okay, so what is static and dynamic? That's your first question when you're approaching this question. When you're approaching what's different is dynamic is on the fly changes. Literally on the fly, I can go here to here to here. It doesn't matter. It's on the fly. Or switching things immediately, and it still function. That's what dynamic server meshing is being able to switch between servers without a hiccup occurring. Along with that, you'll have other technologies that rely on knowing when that switch is occurring. Because it's dynamic, it's decoupled. The switching between servers is decoupled by its very nature. So, in other words, if I'm on the lane, if I'm driving my car on the highway, and I click on my clicker to go to the left lane, people behind me know I'm going to my left lane.
Mm-hmm.
This is a coupled. This is an illustration of what a coupled message to the other services is.
It makes sense.
I'm signaling to So when it's dynamic, I just make the lane change, and everybody already knows I'm making that lane change.
Mm-hmm.
Zook can attest to this, that we see protocols all the time in the IT world that know this stuff innately, that it's programmed innately to know that there's this time frame that occurs, and you can predictably say it's going to change course now, and it will work. So that's the dynamic side of things. For the static side of things, for other games and stuff like that, when we talk about instances or zones, that was the big key. So go back to earlier games like Final Fantasy XI or EverQuest.
Mm-hmm.
You entered a map, and all of your character's stuff was there. Or all the backend services knew you were on that specific zone, and your character was tracked to that specific zone. It didn't exist anywhere else in the services that existed for those games, in RAM and hard drive space, wherever it is.
Right.
Whatever database set it was in. If I go from the kingdom zone and I went to the desert zone, the system in the back end is signaled by me that I entered and accepted that I want my stuff and me moved over there. Again, that's me turning on my clicker to move into the left lane.
Right.
So it is dynamic. It is not dynamic by nature. It is static by nature. It is, if condition happened, then this happened. Very much so. Whereas in dynamic server meshing, what that is predicting when that dynamic change will occur. And that is basically when a player enters a range of something, prepare to switch to here.
Mhm.
So that's one way of thinking about it. Do you have
Can I give
clarifying
an example?
questions? Yes, please knock yourself out, man.
So, an Elite Dangerous is a really good example. And to jump off the example we used earlier, right now in Elite Dangerous, when you're in one star system and you jump to another star system, that would be basically what was that? That would be a static server. That would be the signaling, right? I am saying by hitting the jump button that I want to go there to that server, and that I enter a really cool screen which moves me from this server to another server, right?
Mm.
Well, if you go in Elite Dangerous and you go into Super Cruise, you can, for some star systems that are close enough together, fly from one star to another star without hitting that button, right? But what happens when you get to the other system is there's a point, a dot where the star should be, and there's nothing there. You can literally be right next to it because it calculates distances real time. But because it's flown all the way and you never told it I'm going there, it never loaded in the new system. Right?
Okay.
It never brought it up. It never said load in the planets, load in the bases, load in the star. It never said that. It requires you to say go and hit this particular button for you to get that other system, for you to interact with that other system. Well, dynamic server meshing would be I'm getting far enough in between these two star systems where I'm going to start handing off responsibility for you to this other star system server without you even telling us that you're going there.
Kind of like
Right?
preloading.
You're basically like very much preloading. And for the people who've been watching Joe's stream, he goes from one part of the castle to another part of the castle, and you see that moment of like little loading circles on the doors, right? It's very, very similar. You're loading a new map and trying to make it as possible,
Right.
but instead of it just loading a map for you, that client, right, you're handing off your communication and what server's responsible for you at the same time, right? And that way you can fly to that star system in Super Cruise without hitting that jump button, right? And as you're approaching that system, it will load. It will communicate with you what players are where and why and what's going on, right? It makes the universe, not just the star system, it makes the universe feel more real, more lived in, more authentic, right? And the dynamic part of it is saying we're starting to have a lot of players in this particular area. We're going to start doing that handoff process. Instead of the handoff process happening only between two star systems, right? We're going to have the handoff happen because of so many players, handoff happening between planets or between cities, or potentially, depending upon how good they can get it nailed down, maybe between buildings and city.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And the reason why that's so required is because you can only have so many players talking to a single server, right? There's a fundamental limit to our technology right now that says only so many players can talk on the same server, and to get that maximum density that Star Citizen wants to accomplish, right? You know, with the Holy Grail being one shard for all, right? That's the Holy Grail, right? To get anywhere close to that, which means millions of players on a single shard, there's going to have to be servers that are sized down to small amounts, and there's no way you could accurately predict where to make those boundaries.
Yeah.
So you'd have to make it dynamic.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I appreciate you guys going through that with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I'd like to point out that there was a video game that did a shard of like 10,000 players.
Oh, really?
Yes. It
So,
wasn't Ashes of Creation.
how common is dynamic server meshing among the game world? Like, how often is it used?
I have
That's
never
okay.
heard of it being used before.
Okay.
Most, huh?
Because I know
I'm not
other
saying
games use
never,
server
but-
meshing, but dynamic server meshing. Yeah.
Dynamic server meshing. I think Star Citizen is the only one that I know of that actually uses a dynamic version of it. Everybody else, every other game that I know of is a static mesh.
So they
of
really
some
are
type.
going into the unknown and making
Mhm.
something new.
But the concept of the dynamicness
Mhm.
isn't new to the tech world
Oh, of
at
course.
all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we like Zook. Like I mentioned a brand of switches earlier called Juniper.
Mhm.
They're dynamic by nature. You can just slam them in and they just start knowing what's connected to them and they deal with everything automatically.
Mhm.
So using functions and programming and the theory of stuff like that will work with server meshing in general.
Okay.
It's not an unknown thing. Like it's an unknown thing, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's tried theory that has existed before that they're applying to something that has never been applied to.
Right. Right.
And
Okay.
even from a server standpoint, right? Industries and businesses have been using Dockers and spinning up a
Yep.
virtual server for X reason or Y reason for many years now. Even Call of Duty, Halo, and every AAA title will spin up game servers based on demand for multiplayer matches, right?
Mhm.
If they have released a game and it's doing really, really good, right? And they're expecting 100,000 users the first night, right? And they get 1 million. They want to be able to serve that.
Right.
And the way they serve that is they have a contract with a cloud system, AWS or Azure or whatever it is that you should go with, and says as demand becomes higher and higher and higher, you will provide me extra services as I need it.
Mhm.
Now, as they start asking for more and more and more, it's going to cost them more and more and more and more. But what that means is, from an enterprise standpoint, they can scale up and scale down as needed. Well, that technology has been in use for at least 10 years in the infrastructure field. At least 10 years, if not further. Like, I think it actually goes back a lot further. And basically, this is the first time that I'm aware of, at least, that a gaming company is trying to implement that quickly scale up and quickly scale down game servers for in-universe reasons. Not for we're selling copies reasons, but for in-universe, in-game gameplay reasons.
Mhm.
Like some games have done server meshes that are static. That's very, very rare as far as I'm aware of. But I've never heard of one using dynamic ones.
Right. Okay.
So I would also bring up Ashes of Creation is a MMO that uses over I think 1,500 people per shard. And there was I'm trying to look for the other game that was a crypto game, and I can't remember the name of it to save my
Crypto
life.
game, huh?
But it was like 10,000 players on a shard. So we know putting that many people on a shard is possible.
Right. Okay.
I just can't remember the damn name. I can't.
Well, thanks guys for clarifying that up. That helped me a lot. And then I hope for anybody that ends up watching this video at some point, I hope it helps clear up a lot of that for you guys too.
Yeah, somebody will call me
My
wrong in the
apologies for putting your audience to sleep.
yeah.
Uh,
I'll figure it out.
Shadow.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns about server meshing at all? I know we haven't got to you yet about that one. I know you trust CIG pretty much to get everything done. But do you have any doubts at all?
The only I'm just gonna keep my expectations low until I see it.
Okay.
That's fair.
Um, I'm not. I'm. You know, I haven't been in the game that long, as you guys have. So
I haven't been
yeah,
in much
I
longer than you either.
yeah. I mean, I get hyped. Of course, everybody gets hyped. You know, it's human nature when you see something that you have a passion about, and it gets exciting. Yeah, it does. But at this point in time, I'm just saying in general to keep your expectations to a minimum until you see something tangible.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's my take on it. I'm excited for it, sure, but I'm just going to keep my expectations to a minimum and work with what I have right now until we can advance.
Are you
And
questioning CIG?
no,
Ban.
no, I'm not questioning CIG. I'm just keeping my expectations at a minimum.
I know, Shadows. I just wanted to teach you a bit.
No, I know, but you know, it's one of those things where you see something and it just gives you all the dreams and expectations that you want, and when your hopes get dashed by something so minuscule that a lot of people just start getting salty. And I get it because there's so many people that have been involved with the project a whole lot longer than all of us, you know? And they have a right to be upset. But at the same token, they're doing something that is never been heard of. So they're gonna run into roadblocks and bumps. So I just let it flow. That's it.
Going into the project, you should know that there's a little bit of risk going into it. You know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're not going to get exactly what you picture in your head. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and things change. So the end product might be not be what you was hoping. You know, even if it
Right.
is technical, you know, marvel. The whole game, you know, it could still be a great game without it being what you picture in your head to be exactly what that is. You know, so
Right. And I mean,
Agreed.
there's a lot of people that may not have heard of Squadron 42. There's a lot of people that have not heard of Star Citizen at all,
mhm.
you know? And when this I when this thing drops for a beta, could you imagine how many people are going to flock to it? And the technology works? Oh my god.
Yeah.
So
And
I just keep myself at a low level, work with what I got, and when something new comes tangible, I'm on it.
mhm.
Those are good points.
Even if the multiplayer ends up being something that it's not what everybody wanted in the end, then you know I think there's still a massive fan base for Squadron 42. Even if it's most of the people that play the PU, you know there's so many people out there that would flock to Squadron 42. I think regardless, I think that would do really really well in the end.
Should put out a
To go
episodic
back to what you
release.
said at the very beginning of this section, Joe, I don't, as far as your concept of purpose that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to have quote unquote purpose until probably until beta. Like
Oh, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree.
we're a long ways away from that. We're probably going to get hardcore. We're probably going to have wipes up until the game's launched.
Yeah.
So it's like the long term idea of it is going to be completely wiped out. The beta, at that point in time, we'll probably have base building, we'll have infrastructure building, orgs that could share ships and facilities. At that point in time, you can start quote unquote controlling space, controlling areas if a group wants to, right? And then at that point in time, there's purpose, right? At that point in time, you'd have purpose. Even if it's just temporary purpose, there would be purpose.
As long as there's purpose at all, even if we get wipes, it's to me that's fine. I just want a reason to play the game, you know. And
for me, the purpose for me to play the game, and this is different for everybody. For me, I'm playing with my friends, and with an experience that you can't get anywhere else.
Agreed. Yeah.
I've had some of the best times in a video game with friends in this game.
I'm gonna put out a point. Last week, I did something that I don't know if anybody else has done. I brought out 13 vehicles, and they persisted.
I didn't expect that many. I thought we would get maybe a couple more, 2 or 3 or 4 more maybe, but I never expected 13.
I pulled out 13.
But do you think they would still be there if you left and came back?
They may have, but we got a new update. We got a new update. But I was expecting something to disappear, to despawn.
I would have thought that they would have cleaned it up a little bit.
And I had a C2 out, and I brought all of my small ships to a mining facility, spawned them, and spawned all the vehicles that I had. 13. So you can do the staging for a massive thing. Right. And that was big.
Mm-hmm.
And just I got it on reference.
Just a point of reference, Joe. The way the cleanup system works now, to the best of my knowledge, based on what I've seen in videos and Star Citizens and Spectrum posts, is they only clean up now if the server needs something to be cleaned up.
Yes.
And when they start cleaning up, they start prioritizing things that are not as critical. For example, if there's a ship and there's no players around, right, and there's no items on board, or it's claimed, that's going to be a ship that's more likely going to be cleaned up than a ship that isn't claimed that's sitting right next to somebody all the time.
Right.
Right.
That's exactly what I would think too.
Yeah, so you could potentially spawn 15, 20, 30 of your ships in one location, and so long as that issue, what you're doing, isn't causing the server massive strain,
right,
they don't want to clean it up.
From what I understand it, if you had, let's say, like an org of people, maybe like 10, 20 people, and they all start taking out ships, that's when an issue would start be going on. That's when you would start seeing issues with the server, and it would have to start to clean up some stuff.
Yeah. Hell, even things like cups and used hot dogs on the ground.
Yeah. Because the way they explained it, if I remember, is like if you had somebody just on a moon, you're the only person there, and at that moment on the server, and like you take out, you could do whatever you want essentially. Take out as much as you want, as many ships and that kind of thing. And it would prioritize, and let's say there's like an event going on in a different part of Stanton, where that's where everybody's at. It would prioritize a lot of the cleanup over there if it's hitting the server more than where you're at.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying that was big. That was big.
Yeah, I agree. It completely changes the game for everybody. So it's a big deal.
Huge.
Well, go ahead and move on to the next subject, and that is the Scorpius Antares. We won't spend too much time on this one, but I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on the new ship, whether you hate it or like it, based on what we know now, even though it's not really, we don't know too much of the specs other than what's leaked. I know that the leaks have also stated that there's kind of like a confusion on whether it's going to have both an EMP and a dampener, or it's just one thing. Because the description for the ship changed recently a bunch of times. Like it keeps going back and forth. So, I guess we'll have to see, and we'll have to wait until they actually put it out there. But yeah, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. One little fact that I saw, I think it was someone from the Info Runners commented on the announcement of it on I think it was Twitter. The initial announcement of it was, they said that the let me see, where's it at? Oh, Antares is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius. And they commented on how like brilliant that naming scheme was, and I completely agree. I think that's really cool that they would do that.
Bad.
So yeah, Shadow, your thoughts on it, on the ship?
They can bring out the ship. That's it's fine with me. I don't think it's going to affect the efficiency of the Mantis. I have a feeling that it's going to be more powerful than the Mantis. As a a fighter, but I don't have a problem with it. The Scorpius is a great ship. The heavy fighter, you have to have another person to man the ship for it to be really effective.
Mm-hmm.
This variant, if you think about it, this ship is a wild weasel. Okay? If you're going down to if you were heading down to a planet, you're going to try. The wild weasel was to jam the radar. Okay? And so the other ships could come in. That's what this ship is for. Basically, it's an EMP. It's going to knock out systems. It's going to stop you from quantuming. Okay? There's a purpose for the ship. So eventually, like I say, I don't have a problem with it. It's going to be able to defend itself. It's not going to be great. That's where you're
It'd probably be better than the Mantis, though.
Yeah, but it's with the first Scorpius, and those two together are going to be pretty devastating. So,
from what I understand, is that it is all the specs on it, as far as what was been leaked so far, is exactly what the original Scorpius is. It's just got rid of the turret for the EMP and the dampener and stuff.
Yeah, but the ship is designed to knock out things. That's what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be a very, very valuable ship in space combat, because it's going to knock out the enemy. That's what it's supposed to do. And then here comes your heavy fighters in to blast them out. So, yeah, that's what it's for. Just my thought.
What about you, King?
I'm indifferent to it. I've said it before. I do think that there needs to be variant classes of some ships, but I don't think every ship needs a variant class.
No,
I agree.
I agree.
I'm okay with things like this. I think that this was someone's intro project to the game, and I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I'm guessing that this might be the result of the Montreal team proving themselves, perhaps, which I'm fine with, because Montreal team's my favorite. So If that's the case, then awesome. Keep it up. You know, I'm just looking forward to what else they produce. I wonder. I wonder if this was just a idea that the Scorpius is going to take place as the cop ship of an area or something, and I think they needed a snare or a quantum interdiction to get there, kind of deal. But whatever. I mean, like, hey, I want to see more variants. It may not be something I like to fly or want to fly, but yeah, show me the variants. Let's see how this goes.
Okay. What about you?
Personally, I would like to fly the ship in the PTU just to get a taste of it, and then I'll make a real determination on it.
Yeah, same for me. I'll probably use it, see how it is, whether I should trade in my Mantis for that.
How dare you expect to want to fly something before you buy it?
Oh,
Wow.
No, I, I, I think this is counter to a lot of current opinion. I think it's going to be very weak. Actually, I think it's going to be very, very weak. Because think about it like this: what can you do, right, with a Mantis? A Mantis can still hit hard, but it can still hit, and it can still do the quantum entanglement and jamming. On one pilot seat. My money says, because if you look at every screenshot, every bit of details that's been leaked, that second seat is still there. So they didn't get rid of the turret, and now it's a one-seater that can do everything. I bet it's a two-seater that can need both of them to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a Scorpius, a traditional Scorpius, it could choose to go one seat and be moderately effective. It could choose to go two seats and become very effective. This thing is going to need two seats to go be very effective, and I could do the same thing with two Mantises, right? What kind of coverage could you do with two Mantises? What could you do with two Sentinels, two Warlocks, that do similar roles, right? And let's say you need two ships to do the same thing. Okay, you have one Mantis that does the quantum jamming, and you have one Warlock that does the EMP or the right. You can do effectively the same thing with two ships, and if one of them gets blown up, you still have one of the two features, right? You're putting this ship's going to be big, putting all your eggs into one basket type of ship. And what's really nasty about this, and I think people again are underestimating, a lot of Scorpius pilots, correct me if I'm wrong, fly their Scorpiuses with their wings stowed until they need to fire their main guns because their turret has enough damage to at least have the initial threat, and they stow their wings to protect their weapons from being blown off because their wings are really exposed, right?
Yeah.
And two, they only bring them out when they need the extra firepower, right? Well, with this, the only firepower it has is when the wings are deployed.
Right.
Right? So it can choose to do quantum, it can choose to do EMP, but if it tries to do any damage hits, it's going to open itself up to completely having its shut off. Another thing that they could do to balance it, I think they're likely to balance it, let me be clear, is I bet they won't be able to do both at the same time. I bet the second seater will have to pick. All that second seater will be doing is timing the EMP pulses and timing the QEDs, the quantum jamming, and he won't have guns. He may have missiles, right? He may have missiles, but that's all he's going to do. And that's going to mean two ships to do a very limited limited capability with limited firepower. That makes it really weak. It did do one thing though. Are you okay talking about leak specs on here, Joe?
Go ahead.
One of the leak specs that I've seen, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, obviously it's leak, is the max speed for this thing is going to be really fast. 1305. No, 1303.
Oh, okay.
Right? Which is only 50 away from racers. Right? It's basically going to be a QED EMP interceptor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which means they're expecting it to be sort of squishy. They're expecting it not to be able to put a lot of damage out, right? You know, what does 4 size 3s do that a Saber can't? Just QED and EMP? Okay. How many Sabers can I have? How many Sabers can I have with 2 pilots?
Okay.
2.
I'm gonna go back quite a few years. Okay.
I'll be right back, but you guys keep going.
In Vietnam, okay, they had planes that did this specific thing. They weren't made for combat. They were made to go in, knock out electronics, or jam them while the heavy hitters came in behind them. They weren't supposed to be fighters. Okay? So this is what I mean. This is what this ship is. This ship is supposed to knock out the systems, electronics, and bug out. And then here come your heavy hitters. So, I mean, that's the purpose of the ship. That's how I see it.
I think a lot of people's fears, though, Shadow, is that this will be both. Somebody that's going to get behind the line and knock out electronics or prevent someone from running and also have a pretty big punch to keep them down. And I don't think, it could jam up and 2 ships at once. Exactly, Trips. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be an issue where, because the wings are so vulnerable, it's going to have a concern of maybe I don't fire. It's going to be get behind the lines. I think Shadow's completely right. Its best use case will be get behind the line, do EMP damage, do quantum jamming, do something, right? And if you're going to go into a fight to kill, you're not going to want to bring the ship. Oh. If you're going to want to bring the fight to trade, or not trade, to pirate or to steal, or take over an area without just destroying everything in your path, I think you'll want this ship. But if you're going to go in there for a fight, I can have much larger impact with 2 pilots than I can 2 Saber pilots than I can with both those pilots into this ship.
Yeah, it seems like that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
With what we've seen so far. Yeah.
Mike, your thought?
Actually, I'm pretty much in agreement with the Zook on that. Like, he kind of just replicated my entire thought process too.
Yeah, same here.
So, yeah, man.
All right. Yeah, the ship is not made for combat.
Let me see. Yeah, what he said.
When I was watching the narrative team do their little episode, I heard that one of the guys said that he was working on a ship commercial for something that's coming out pretty soon.
Scorpius.
And it's either the I think it's either the Scorpius or the Hull C.
Didn't one of the guys slip up during one of the ISCs and like give out what ships are coming out this year?
Oh no, it wasn't.
He was working on a ship.
I can't remember exactly what it was.
He said he was working on a ship, and that with the goal of having it out by the end of the year.
It was the date thing, and then Jared was like, "Don't do dates, please. Don't do that to people."
That's what it was. I misheard him. I thought he said something he wasn't supposed to, because there was that conversation that did happen. Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell people.
Yeah,
that's what.
They did.
The conversation did occur.
They did say that they're working on
What
the
ship was it?
Sentaki I and the X1, I
Yeah.
believe.
Oh,
And
that's right. Another one Trip will be very looking forward to seeing. He
I'm
was
buying
one that
S1.
purchased that one and got really upset about that particular ship being pushed back.
yeah,
And it's like, I don't blame him.
I will buy an X1 for sure.
I'll probably buy one too. It's gonna be a new CCU token probably, or not? Yeah.
I'm waiting for it, but anyway, I that's my thought on the Scorpius.
Okay.
It's designed to be a wild weasel. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll quickly go through interiors. So again, I'm just going to ask the basic question: what are your guys' thoughts on the building interiors, and how will the building blocks that makes these interiors, how will that affect the game in the future? They had my notes on it are they essentially want them to be procedural dungeon kits, and I mean it seems in line with everything else that they're doing. And like the first level is going to be a rooftop landing area type of thing. Second one would be maintenance, power rooms, technical rooms. Third floor would be residential apartments, social spaces. Fourth would be commercial offices, restaurants, and like shopping areas. Fifth could be like a lobby for, like a receptions area, communal area. And then you'd have underneath that subways, sewers, maintenance tunnels, and possible gameplay for like racing and stuff like that, street races. But yeah, go ahead, guys. Your thoughts on all of that?
Bring it,
Mike.
It's a little bit too summed up. Like I think they want to make it a little bit more dynamic than just like this is the only thing that can be on level 1, only thing that can be level 2. I think that was more
just a first thought of like this is what it could be. It's not like a final thing. Yeah. Clearly, it was all concept art. They are going to be. They are working on them, but it's it's just like, hey, this is what it could be. Yeah, for right now.
My main thing is I'm super excited because they didn't say it, but if this is clearly a move towards having a player owned space.
Yeah.
Not something we're building, but something that we could rent, purchase. Again, back to what you were saying earlier, Joe. This is purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. I am paying for my high loft apartment, right? That my squadron can come hang out at after we're done with the mission or when we're just chilling out or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Versus this is a place and you can walk into a player's hab and you can make sure you can clearly see this guy's successful. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. This is purpose, right? This is gameplay. This is expandability. This is I'm really excited about this. They're clearly putting in a lot of thought about this. My only concern, and which is a minor concern, is I don't want to make the spaces themselves purposeless. I don't want the spaces to be the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be gameplay. I don't want there to be just a bed and a living room and a kitchen, right? I want there to be a meeting room where we could have meeting rooms to look through inventory and manage ships and manage org loadouts. I want to be able to rent out an org space where if you want to use an org ship, you'd go to the org facility in game to access the org infrastructure, the org's facilities, or to edit it, or to donate money to it, or buy things for the org.
They have the sim pods, that they say whatever you can put in your ship that's supposed to go in a ship in the future. I feel like you should be able to put those in your apartments too. Like why not have a sim pod in your apartment that gives you access to the other modules? Like Arena Commander and everything else, all the simulations. Yeah,
it's the same thing. Lobbies and offices and restaurants and everything. I don't want another restaurant where I go up to a counter and look at the food, pick it up, and go eat it. Right? Because if they're going to build a building to put one of those special made in there, how many of us go into go into Microtech and go to the bar and go eat at the bar. We rarely ever do, right? Most of the times when we eat in game, we go to the starport, we go across the piece, buy a snack bar.
It's got to be convenient.
Eat it and go about our way. Yeah, it needs to have a purpose that will make it where the inconvenience of going there is worth it.
Yes.
And they did elaborate on that. And that's the reason why I'm holding my breath. The player hubs, spaces, really exciting. The rest of it, really cool in concept, but they have to give purpose for those spaces too.
Yeah.
There has
right now,
to be game.
It just sounds like set dressing at the moment.
Yeah,
when they
exactly.
talk about it, that's all it looks like. Like it's just supposed to give like a tone and a feel to these, because they talk about, you know, how the buildings, the interiors are going to look based on where they're at, whether it's utilitarian, you know, or like very upper class type of thing. So yeah. What about you, like King?
I'm excited for the prospect of what it does bring. There's more than just the procedural generation of it. What comes behind that is what I'm more excited about. Like, for instance, missions, sabotage missions, data running missions, things like that. Living in a place, an org headquarters, like Zook pointed out. You know, and perhaps it's not even just at places like Lorville, but like, remember a couple of the meeting room episodes back, I mentioned that I think eventually they're going to start planting other cities down on these planets. And when they do that, you know, an org might be able to buy one of those cities if they have enough money and plant their org stuff there. You know, it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's what's going to happen, but yeah, stuff like that. I mean, it's absolutely interesting what they can do with it, as long as the procedural generation of these things makes sense. Like, we can't have, like, in the example they kind of gave, like, I'm afraid what they'll do is the initial version will be like 100 replications of the same thing. I would love to see independent, different things. Maybe they'll have 5 buildings of the same style in different the city. But maybe beyond that, they'll have like, oh, well, here's where your ship shops are, and your restaurants, and your org, and then here's where corporate life is, and then here's where Origin is, and then, you know, all sorts.
I think that's how they'll do it, because they got the to help connect all that stuff together. They were talking about the hubs. There's going to be hub buildings that kind of connect everything to like the transit system, you know. And so there's going to be reasons why you would want to go to one building over another. And for them to do that, they would have to have differences between them.
As long as it's like...
Am I the only one that was really bothered by them using the term hub station?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No, not really.
So the concept of like the hub station where you could like go there and go other places from there, does that not sound like a starport to you?
Does a little bit,
kind of, but that has the purpose of, it has its own purpose of being that's where you're going to go to get your ship. So this is a hub that connects you to different services.
So like I could see, which I think is cool, but I didn't like the fact that they use the word hub and not a space station.
Oh.
For example, right now we store our ships at a space station, right?
Yeah.
The words they used was you take your ship, you park your ship there, and they store it there. We do that at the space station, at the star station, or at the equivalent of airport.
Well, you're not going to need to.
Now,
unless they have
really
your homes, you know, a selection of homes there at the station too, or something like that. I don't know.
I think you missed my point. I'm excited about this because this could be a way of scaling up the hangars.
Yes.
Instead of having 100,000 hangars or 1,000 hangars at Area 18, your org could go to Area 98, and that's where you rent your hab. That's where you rent your org structure, and that's where your org has their hangars at. right?
I like.
That's where you
I
have
remember
your
only
idea.
hearing about landing pads, not hangars. But yeah, they could do hangars though too. I might
And
have
don't
missed that.
forget, spaceports aren't meant for you to be there permanently. Spaceports are a
Mhm.
temporary drop location for you to visit a city and then leave. And
Yeah,
I think that's something we got to remember. And if your home base is on Area 27, like Zook pointed out, kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, and Zook what mentioned just now, is they'll have sections. Ors will have their own sections for things, and then you can go to your section and park your vehicle and your stuff.
think about in real life how expensive it is to go park your car in a parking garage at the airport and then go off for a week and then come back. How much you would have to pay, for that space? It'd be a lot.
That's actually a good point. That would, I could see them changing the names now. That's a good point. Actually, it's not completely on my mind. They would need a new term or a new word for that type of facility, which is more personalized as opposed to a more general starport. I get it now. Makes sense. If assuming they're doing that, that would make sense.
What about you, Shadow?
I would love to see with the interiors. I just don't want them to be generic, where they copy and paste the same thing over and over again. I don't want to see that. I want to see some diversity. I would love to see it where, yeah, where you have the purpose. Like, I I get it. I want to be able to purchase something that's mine with the AUEC, or the when it becomes a real game, UEC, and say, this is my home. This is my place. Put my things in it that I've accumulated throughout the game, and be able to come back, go out, do what I got to do, and come back, chill out. I want to be able to drive a vehicle to my hangar, get my ship, and go on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the hub, right? Just like Zook was saying, and I totally agree with that. I think we should have them where I go and purchase this area for my organization, right? And then expand it out to where we have enough hangars for ships. But this is our place, you know? And I live there. And then when I go out, do what I got to do, come back, it's mine. So yeah, I would love to see that. But I just, like I say, I just don't want them to be so generic that it looks the same. That would suck.
Well, I think that's where player customization comes in, manufacturer customization comes in, the different assets from different companies like Microtech, Hurston, and AirCorp.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to feel very, very different. And then you're going to have places in Microtech that's, less affluent Microtech, very affluent Microtech, right? Each one of them is going to have a different feel, and each one of the different areas will have a different purpose. Even if they don't do anything special, the look and feel of the underground racetrack for Dragonflies will look and feel way different than, say, a boardroom or facility.
Yeah.
Now, let's say they do that, and the missions, the essentially the dungeon, which is the corporate headquarters, is the same regardless. Like, other than just like a reskin. That's pretty cheesy. That's the cheapest way for them to go about it. But even if they do that, you'd only have to go there if the gameplay you're wanting to accomplish needs you to go there. So the more different game loops is going to be in the game, the less detail and complex and variety each part of those game loops have to be. So, like for example, let's say you're going after a bounty, and part of the task is to figure out where he is by getting intel by going to a corporate office, and that's just one of the ways, right? You would go to that corporate office as a means to an end, not just for the gameplay itself. That would give that corporate office purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's hyper generic, it would feel unique because of how you're using it.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to make them different, because we can see how they started doing that with bunkers, and we can see with the more recent videos how they're, especially with last year's CitizenCon, right, where they're going through and completely redoing the bunkers to be much more complex, much more varied, for purpose across every size and content and purpose. The variety, they're making them varied. I could see them very easily doing that with corporate offices in this building. Now, I don't know if they're going to do that. That's just me speculating. But I see no reason why they couldn't.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to be able to mix and match the different rooms to serve specific functions, kind of like how they approach ships, right? Where each ship has their certain role. I feel like certain buildings, certain apartment buildings or houses or whatever, should have their own purposes, like much like you would in the real world when you're trying to buy a house. Like, okay, this one has a pool, this one doesn't, this one's next to a school, this one, the school is a little bit farther away, it's not that great or whatever. It's kind of the same thing, so yeah, maybe one has a conference room for the orgs and the other one doesn't or something. But yeah. All right, moving on to that, we have our last subject, which is the narrative team. They got together, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions about what do you guys think about the lore for Star Citizen? Do you guys care about the lore? I know some people don't. I personally, I absolutely love it. I know Zook is all into it too. But do you guys care about the lore, and also how much of it do you guys know currently? Go ahead, Shadow.
I didn't get into the lore until recently. After I've been in the game for a little bit, and I started reading things and listening to podcasts or videos about the different systems and stuff like that. Shout out to Astro Historian and Board Gamer Zen.
Without them, nobody would know anything.
And
very true.
Then when I, started looking things up in Galactopedia, right?
Yeah.
Learning more and more about things. I've gotten so much information, okay, from that I wrote my own backstory, okay, how the snowbirds were created, how they were thought up. So I'm even writing a lore story about my character, how she came to be, why she became, went to Lorville and started to fly and learn and become a transport, rescue, and cargo pilot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working out the details, but that interests me because I was a writer for Star Trek fan fiction. So yeah, I love the lore. gives me more perspective on the game.
But like
The
you
more-
said,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it took you a while though to really get into it when you started the game.
It took me a minute because I mean, you're busy learning the mechanics of the game. You're not thinking about the lore.
Well, I think it
But
comes
when-
down to is
It's not the everyday part of the gameplay right now.
the new player experience isn't really there, and it doesn't really describe what's going on around you,
No,
and then so you
doesn't.
really don't have like a setting. You don't know what the UEE is,
Right.
you don't know your purpose. Why are you here? Why are you even in the game? What's your
Right.
character? And then the RSI website isn't really user friendly. New people have a really hard time of navigating that. So, and that's where all the lore
Yeah.
is buried deep in these really long lore posts about things
Mhm.
that nobody wants to
Mhm.
read it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But once you get past a certain point in the game, okay, learning how to do your daily stuff, right? And then you hear these stories and it's like, well, wait a minute, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Then that's how I started getting into it. And that's where I learned about the Genesis Starliner, the 600i, the 600, the cargo variant, and all these types of things. It's like, holy crap, where did all this come from? And they've been
Yeah.
doing this for 10 years, right?
Yeah, it's very rich at this point.
Yeah. So, yeah, they've kind of scaled down a bit recently, but hey, they're still putting it out there. It's out there to read. A lot of it is enjoyable. You'll learn a lot of history of how things were created and done, and why the quantum drive was built and all this type of stuff. I mean, there's a lot out there. So
The feeling that I get out of it, right, is the reason why that the lore has kind of slowed down up until recently is the fact that I think there's an issue with if you start putting out too much lore before the gameplay is actually associated with the game and how the game still isn't finished. So when it comes down to that moment of putting a gameplay loop in that we've been waiting for, they have to figure out what's going on with lore behind that. And I feel like it's harder for them to dig through old lore that's already associated because they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense with this game loop. Like for whatever reason.
That's why some things were changed.
So I think if they get all the game loops in, the gameplay in first, it's easier to build lore around that than it is to do it the other way around. That's at least when they talked about it in that episode. That's what I got from it.
But some things were changed for Pyro, and people had a fit.
And they don't realize that thing
because they wrote it too early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was way back in the day. So things changed since then, and you got to make it make sense. That's the more important.
Right. And that's my thought. That's my take on it. I love it.
What about you, King? What are your thoughts on that?
I won't care about the lore until I play the Squadron 42.
That's really going to kick it off for you?
Yeah, because I have to interact with the game to give a fine hoot about what it's about. It's like
that's what the PU is lacking right now.
Yeah, PU is just a sandbox. Like I said before, it's the sandbox in which the game is being built. There's nothing important there for me. I don't care about mission givers. I don't care about the reason why I gotta go pick up box Q. You know what I mean? Like I just go pick up box Q for 15K. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
It's like that's the one thing I think every MMO has. I have a problem with that. There's no potatoes with the meat. But if I play like an RPG, there's meat and potatoes because the game's required play is the story. Like, you have to be the story. That's when I care about it. So, but until I play Squadron 42, I'm just not going to care about the story or lore.
I feel you on that. Makes sense. What about you, Zook?
You
cut out there.
I am
that whole thing
Say
cut
what?
out.
Yo, dog, we're not ordering a McDonald's here.
No, I am a big fan of lore. Every game I've ever really played, especially the MMOs that I've played, I like having, as Shadow said, a story behind my character and an adventure that I have inside of the universe and a headcanon for my character and how I exist in the universe. And to really have that and do it so properly, you have to have a very good understanding of the universe that you're playing. Now, what Star Citizen is lacking is there's no gameplay associated with the lore. You can see signs, you can see hints, there's decorations, there's set dressing that hints at it and will describe it. And if you pay attention to the details, you can get lore from inside the game, right?
You gotta fish
But
it
for
out.
now, it's just, you have to fish it out. It's painful to fish it out right now.
Nobody looks at their
So
journals
unless
either.
you're- Yeah.
I forget that I have them.
Unless you're unless you are an absolute lore aficionado, you'll completely miss it. You'll completely bypass it, and it won't change your gameplay experience if you do.
Mhm.
I think eventually it will matter. I think eventually, and they've given a couple examples of, once they put in multiple systems and they start putting, say, a brand new system, right? It will be beneficial to have someone who's familiar with the band new, both how they work, how they trade, how they operate, so that you won't get screwed over by a trade, or you won't be taken advantage of, or you won't act in such a way that the band new will consider a threat, right? And at that time, the only way to know that is to dig into the lore, whether that be, something in Game as far as like a TV station, somebody looking to do a beginner mission, like maybe after you've played in Stanton and Pyro and Nyx and Odin for a long time, I'm going into a Banu space. There might be a beginner Banu player mission or a beginner Banu experience mission that could give you the basic concepts of it. Or if you want to bypass it, you can bypass it and just go in blind. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can do. I think they're planning to do, that they've mentioned, that they're just a long ways away from doing it. And again, that's not bad. That's not criticism.
It's
sucks. Just the fact it sucks. It's just the way it's just the state of the game is right now. So for people like myself who care about the lore, who love the lore, I have to rely on Astro Historian, make great content. I have to rely on Board Gamer and Zen. Love her audio clips from the lore pieces that they publish. And I'm glad they're slowing down on lore posts because for people who are reading it, there's a lot to catch up on, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then 2, because the fact of the matter is lore is having to be changed, 600i and Pyro are perfect examples based on the gameplay that they're creating, that now I'm having to relearn lore, and I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of don't want to relearn lore.
It's a lot. It's a lot of reading for nothing.
Yeah,
and it's like
exactly.
There's no when I heard that the lore is kind of changing in some areas, I was like, well, there's really no reason for me to read it now. Then, I might as well wait because I don't care about knowing something that's not going to make it in the game.
And I defend that by saying that they're treating the changes not so much as a hard fact as more of this is the rumor mill that's coming from these systems. They don't go into hyper detail. They go into detail enough that you would hear, if you heard about it from hearing about it, from hearing about it. Let's say you're an American citizen right now, and you're hearing about how it's like to be a citizen in a country that we're not friendly with right now, right? you're not going to know about that firsthand. You're not even getting news from it from that country. You may hear about it from a talking head that interviews somebody who may have heard it from somebody else who lived there. And that's sort of how the lore is being pushed in now. So that if the lore changes, it might be a clarification of the rumor mill. And that's sort of how I feel about it right now. So it's still worth reading. I'm just glad they're leaving the systems that they know they're not going to get to for a very long time. They're leaving that blank and they're not touching on it.
Yeah.
Because you can see that the lore posts that are coming out with are the lore posts that are coming for Hyro, that's coming from Nyx, stuff that we know is coming out, that we know is in development, and we know that content is being made for. So it feels like the lore posts that they're making now is more like we've made a decision on the lore in this system based on the gameplay that's being made. So here's the lore.
Right.
That's what it feels more like to me.
What they're more confident with putting out there is what's like if they feel that they're confident that it's going to make it to the final product of the game, then they'll put it out these days. Yeah.
Because you saw back in I think it was December, they did a massive lore dump on Pyro.
Oh, did they?
And
last December?
Yeah, I think it was in December. I think it might have been November, but I think it was December. And it felt like to me that this didn't come out of nowhere. No, you have a similar lore post when it's a bunch of lore posts that are being dumped about the same general system or the same general topic that could very easily be associated with each other in gameplay, whether it's Squadron 42 or proper Star Citizen, I don't know, but there was a underlying theme behind them that felt like gameplay was being finalized, or at least the decisions on the gameplays was being finalized.
Sorry, I just had a stream on next to me here went down, but it looks like it's still good.
Yeah, it's still loaded for mine.
Okay, good. So it's just me then.
It's been buffering.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's still.
It popped back up. Maybe it was like reconnecting or something. I didn't notice. Yeah, I completely agree. Absolutely. The next thing that I think is pretty interesting I wanted to talk to you guys about is that there's Jared kind of brought up that there's going to be a new mission that you can do that's associated with mining claims, and it's going to be a new essentially a new company called the Tar Pits. It's going to be an outlaw group that essentially tar means tow and rescue, and they're kind of going under that disguise of like, hey, we're a towing company, don't really pay us any mind, and then they kind of just jump out at you and pirate you or whatever it is that they do, and they're going to be giving out I'm sorry, it's salvage. It's for salvage, not mining. Salvage rights to a specific location. So I thought that was really cool, but they said the way it might happen is in the future with them. It's not going to happen right away, but they're talking about how their company operates is the same thing that we have now as far as like people using service beacons as a trap. Essentially, now we're going to be having NPCs doing that to us. And so I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that, because I thought it was just hilarious how so many people kind of complain about it and talk about it and stuff like that. It's been a hot topic, right? And to have them actually putting NPCs in the game that are essentially doing the same thing in a different way, I just think it's absolutely hilarious, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on it. Azuki, you want to start?
It's the same thing that I've said for a while as far as PvP is concerned. It's like it's an open universe, right? You can choose to avoid actions. And Trips, one of the people that are watching us right now, will give me grief because he vehemently disagrees with me on this one. Anytime we do a surface beacon rescue or rescue beacon, he's like, "It's a trap! It's a trap! It's a trap!" And we go out there and I say, "Okay, I got you back, man. We got this. We got this." It's a situation where it adds a bit of spice and variety to the game, right? If you're willing to make big money and take big risks, it gives you the option, right? It's a way of creating a risk reward ratio without sitting there and just making it samey and making it feel the same and knowing what is there every single time you pick up the mission. Right now, if you pick up a bunker, you know what's there. Even if you pick up the criminal version of a bounty hunter, you know what's going to be there.
It's always the same.
This type of mission creates a variety there where you legitimately may not know what's there, right? You may not know. And you can say, if it's worth the risk, let's get some fighters, get some reclaimers together, let's go take on that risk. If I'm not ready for that risk, maybe I don't want to do that job for them, right? And the being that it's a single company that's doing it is good because you're kind of, if you avoid them, you can avoid that risk. So it's not like it's being thrust upon you. Just like if you don't like risking medical beacons being traps, you don't take medical beacons.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's a good thing because that means the only people who are taking medical beacons, for the most part, are ones that are ready to at least deal with the trap.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to people that really want to focus in on the medical gameplay, I think, they're the ones mainly complaining about everything right now because they want to go and help people. They don't want to have to focus on a trap or whatever. But it's just because there's not much to medical gameplay at the moment. So
again, I don't care what level of medical gameplay you want to do. I don't care if you want to become a super expert at it, right? You either be ready for the fight or bring someone along who is willing to fight on your behalf, right? It's an open world. Like if you look at the real world, right, and you are a paramedic team, right? If there's they don't go in there blind. They go in there.
The police go in first.
Oftentimes, the police go in first, especially if it's a bad situation with someone's been shot.
They don't know if there's somebody back there. A lot of times, you have to get the police in there first to figure out what the fuck happened. Sorry, but what why is this person hurt? Why is this person hurt? Right, and then they go in, clear the house or whatever.
Get control of the situation.
Yeah.
Get control of the situation, and then sit in the medical piece.
Yeah.
Right, and medical orgs that are purpose-built being medical teams are doing this.
Yes.
They have drop teams of fighters with ground teams to clear out the place, to clear the place, and with a medical team that comes in afterwards, which I think is absolutely amazing.
But that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yes.
That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's going to be. And if you can't do that, that's fine. You don't have to do that. But you are taking that risk.
Yes.
The idea that you can have gameplay in an open MMO, right, without the risk is just not part of the gameplay. This game was never supposed to be that, ever.
It's not supposed to be restricting. They're not going to take a certain part of the gameplay and be like, all of a sudden it's linear, to the point where you have to do it completely like this specific way, right? So they want you to have the options. There has to be some sort of risk,
But it's just like, when I'm gonna get my teams to buddy up, and when they decide to do medical run, I'm going to do this, and I'm thinking about this, and I've been thinking about it. Train my medical teams to be able to react to a hostile situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go in there with a buddy. You don't go in there by yourself. I've done it. I've never been caught. I've never been trapped, but I know people that have. Okay? So it's all about preparation. It's all about training. It's all about building your skill to handle the situation. And
to recognize the situation
well,
before it bites you.
yes, but that's what the preparation is for. Prepare. Be ready. Because you don't know what you're walking into.
Mm-hmm. And that sort of gameplay should be fun. You know, like that to me, at least, I find it exciting. The fact that there's a medical situation supposedly, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen, right? I love that. Like that's the reason why I would take one, because I want to go there. I want to figure out what happened. You know, it's fun to take control of the situation, and you know, if it's a legit one, to actually help the person and whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, we all take the risk every time we get in the ship. Every time we fly, we take risk. So it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to be prepped. You got to be ready. I'm just gonna say it, and I did. So I mean, it's a real thing.
You said it. He said
yeah,
it.
I did.
He did. It's true.
But I mean, it's a real thing. It's something that you Star Citizen is a game of preparation. You know, and this is the thing that I'm trying to get. I'm going to work on with my organization to be prepared in any type of situation. And when it comes to the point we get pirated and we're allowed to defend our ships. Going to be prepped and ready. So there it is. That's my thought.
Okay.
I can do more because this game encourages and rewards preparation so much. I can do more at Jump Town with the green horns that listen to orders, commands, suggestions, whatever you call it. That have been read by me. Here. There's a bunch of boxes here. You do this. Everyone gets it. Nobody misses it. No exception. Right? I can do more with a set of greenhorns that have proper gear and is prep and is aware of what the plan is than I can with a bunch of hyper expert senior pilots and senior Star Citizens that are just going in there willy-nilly. My group has legitimately gone into Jumptown with people who have been playing for 2 weeks or less, being a significant part of our force, and have beat other orgs that are known to be larger PvP-focused orgs, because when we set up, I gave a brochure. I said, hey, here's a PDF of what the plan is, how we're going to operate, how we're going to operate. Here's an SCU box with the gear you're going to need. Right? Here's the ammo. Here's the gun. Here's the attachments. Here's the medical pieces. Right? And we go in there and we're successful because they're not expecting someone to be prepared.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way in this game. And if you go in there, and that's what frustrates me about people who don't want PvP in their Star Citizen experience. It's like, that's fine. You can do things to avoid it, right? There's a lot of things you can do to minimize that risk, but the risk is always there, and if you're not preparing for it, you're setting yourself up for failure.
You're going to have a bad time.
Exactly.
That is on you. That's not on the person, that's not on the pilot, that's not on the briefer, that's on you.
Well, it's just like if you study for the test, you're going to pass. You know, you should be getting an A+. But I mean, if you don't study, you're not going to do very well. You know, that's what Star Citizen is. King,
good.
what are your thoughts? And we're almost done here, guys. That's the last question, essentially. After this, we'll just get final thoughts and take questions from anybody in the chat. If you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them.
Could you restate the question so I can answer it properly? I've lost it.
So the Tar Pits, they're an outlaw group that essentially do what people are doing with not salvage, medical beacons now. Is people are trapping other people, making it seem like it's a medical beacon, and then they get there and they end up getting jumped or something. That's essentially NPCs. What do you think of NPCs doing that?
I'm at a weird thing because I was there to experience it when medical beacons dropped, and that's what the first thing that happened to me was players doing that to me, and I just said, all right, well, I'm never going to do that again. But because I was expecting it to be players down needing help. But in this case, this is adding a gameplay element saying, and they're telling you, hey, we're adding this gameplay element. Okay, now I can expect it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be interesting gameplay, especially if it was you and maybe 2 to 3 other people, and you were running a medical outfit trying to help NPCs to gain rep. I think it's a good idea. Because they communicated with us about it. If they just implemented this in game, I would be probably upsetty spaghetti.
Well, I think there are things, they want us to discover as it comes out, right? It could have been something, as far as the medical beacons are concerned, could have been something that maybe they didn't exactly think about right away. Or if they did, they probably just like, yeah, it's fine if they go, let them come up with the ideas. It's, let's see what they do with these gameplay mechanics, rather than just tell you outright the answers to the things that you could do.
Yeah, more or less just
I'll challenge
tell me
you
that
and say that some of this is already in game, as is.
As long as it's communicated that as long as it's communicated that there's plans to do it in this way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. But other than that, yeah, no, bring it on. It just brings a new gameplay loop to the game that, honestly, we really need.
Okay, I can agree with that. Okay, so this is the final segment of the show. I want to get your final thoughts on everything, starting with Shadow. Anything else you want to say before we end the stream?
With all the information that we have and that we've talked about this evening, still keep your expectations at a minimum. Don't get too hyped, because you only get burned when something doesn't go right. If something gets delayed, don't be upset. It happens. That's part of what we deal with every day. So just keep your expectations low. Don't overhype yourself too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, it's all going to be something we're going to be so excited for that it's going to overwhelm us. But at this point, keep them low. It's my take on everything that we've talked about tonight.
I want to, that's a great thing to say there, Shadow. I'm also going to say, when you're playing it and you're in the verse, try just to be a little bit more kinder to everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's new players out there that need your help.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. But I understand you also got to protect yourself, but just a little bit of kindness goes a long way.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of us met, to be honest.
That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We can agree that best experiences mostly, positive interactions with people in the chat and helping people out some way, shape, or form. What about you, Zook? Final thoughts?
I sound harsh, and I can come across as harsh. And if that I came across, I wanted to go ahead and say I apologize. That was not my intent. To your audience, I like to be blunt about it, but the reality is that the vast majority of interactions out there are wholly positive, right? Most times you come across a ship, you come across them in passing.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the times you come across a ship that's at anchor, they're just doing their own thing. They take off and leave doing their own thing, right? The vast majority of medical rescues are legitimately people who need help, right?
Yeah.
I've done a lot of medical rescues because that's the purpose gameplay that I'm finding right now that I get a lot of fun out of because it's so unique and it's different every single time. The vast majority, I mean like 95% plus, are legitimate rescues, right? And once you get to playing for a while, you can kind of tell that they're there. You can kind of tell if it's a trap or not before you get into a situation where you've sprung the trap, right? And I'm not going to go into that detail here now because we're closing up. But if you're new to the game and you're worried, don't be. The stuff you have right now is temporary. It's alpha, right? So if you lose it, don't sweat it. Even if worst case scenario, you lose it, don't sweat it, right? 2, now's a chance you can get with other groups, like the Free People of the Verse, like Void, like Joe's group, like the SnowBirds, like any group, right? Learn from them. They can take their time, and I am more than happy. I thoroughly enjoy helping newer players learn what to recognize, learn what to look out for, learn how to be prepped, learn how to be ready, because it really isn't hard. It's just different. It's a different kind of gameplay than a lot of other games encourage, and you have to sort of relearn it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it. It's fun, and it's very rewarding. So don't sit there and say PvP, so I have to be afraid. You don't have to be. You don't. Try it out. Find someone to help you out. Don't be afraid to ask. Fly safe.
Yeah, that's all amazing advice there, because for anybody out there, there's a lot of people where this game would be very intimidating. It's very overwhelming. There's a lot to it. And, just like with anything else, it's kind of overwhelming. It's all about taking that first, just do it. First step, like just join an org. You can always, if you don't like it, you can always join a different one, but it's totally worth the effort put into it. Go out of your comfort zone, go talk to some people, it's okay. And your experience will be a lot better for it. So,
and it's a totally different experience. That's where the magic is.
The community, Star Citizen's community, I have seen a lot in the past, and this one is just overwhelmingly positive for the most part, like you guys have been saying. And I think the only negativity really comes from, and like the toxicity I've seen really comes from like Spectrum and like Reddit and stuff like that. But that's a whole different. Those are whole different beasts. That's outside of the game. There's no need to go there to those two places. Just play the game with your org and just have fun. So yeah. With that, we'll go ahead and end this stream. I really appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with us for the SnowBirds meeting room. And I know we've been saying this a lot. We've actually live streamed a couple more times. It was always a first live stream somewhere. We've been moving around. It was the first live stream of my channel and the first live stream of Shadow Specter's channel. And now it's the first live stream officially on the SnowBird meeting room actual channel.
Right.
So we finally got it home.
Should I get on my channel?
Oh, we can do that. We can mix it up. We can do that. We can confuse people a little bit longer.
Look, I got a ham radio we could do this on if you guys wanted to.
Let's do it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Let's
there we go.
Come on, keep people guessing. They'll never know where to look for this channel.
We'll show up on Spotify on like NPR News one day. Like, what?
But yeah, thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it. We do these things every Monday or Tuesday, and we talk about everything Star Citizen that's relevant. So yeah. All right, we'll call it a day. Thank you guys, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.